It's a terrific place to start your career. I neither loved it nor hated it. You know, when folks looked at my resume, they still would see me as like, oh, you're former Big Four. And he had been outsourcing the accounting function to India. So is it cost effective? But you have the time zone issues, you have business context issues. It's hard to just chat about a problem, harass them if they're late paying them, code vendor bills, close the books every month, generate financial reports. But when I throw something against a wall and see if it sticks, I've got people who actually understand marketing say, no, Bart, that's dumb. Like, we shouldn't do that. And I remember I had just a rock star A player staff accountant who I was like, how do we get you to senior accountant? Like, that you're so good at this. And she was just like, no, I'm good. Well, the answer is yes now. Like, you have any portfolio companies that could use us? And the answer was yes. And so within probably a month or two, we went from 4 clients to 7. Joel and I each put $2,000 in the business just for the sake of, we'll pay our people $2,500 if they refer someone in. Using a recruiter who might, you'll pay 20% of a salary. We got to get to 20 million in revenue, or we got to get to 100 people, or like, I don't have any of those specific goals. I still wake up at 2 or 3 in the morning sometimes and go like, holy crap, I've got 35 people and their families who are like kind of relying on me making sure that I don't screw this thing up.
Welcome back to Success on the Rocks. This is episode number 5. We're switching it up a little bit today. Someone outside of the real estate industry. So we have Bart Davis, CEO of 512 Financial. And their company is a fractional CFO company along with some other services. But we're going to learn a little bit about his story and how he grew it from ground zero to 7 figures in a little over 2 years. So Bart, thanks so much for being on today, man.
Yeah, appreciate you, Leo.
Cheers.
Cheers.
So I'd like to just dive right into it. You're originally from Milwaukee. What was it like growing up there, and what did your parents do for a living?
Loved growing up in Milwaukee. I grew up in a little suburb called Shorewood. It's just outside of Milwaukee, a 1 square mile little town. Loved it there. My dad was a lawyer, and my mom spent some time at home with my sister and I, but predominantly was a preschool teacher.
Okay. Did you have any kind of close entrepreneurs in the family, or was it just something, for first generation doing it?
Yeah. No, certainly not in the immediate family. Maybe others around the family, but no, I would have not. I mean, literally, probably until we started the business, I would have not considered myself an entrepreneur. I'm an accountant by education and trade, and tend to be risk averse people. I was not really kind of on the radar until the point when it really just made sense, which obviously we can get into. But
so I know you attended university in San Antonio. When you went into it, did you know going in that you were going to study accounting?
No, I had no clue what I was going to study. I started, so it's a liberal arts college, Trinity University. Didn't force that choice until I was probably sophomore, junior year, I guess. And I started out as a math major. I was always into numbers, but made my way through Calc 1 and Calc 2. And I was told that if you get through Calc 2, it's smooth sailing from there. But I got to Calc 3, which was like spatial math, and that my brain did not work that way. So I bailed on the math route and popped over to accounting.
Okay, and did you know that you were going to end up doing a master's program as well, or was that always the plan?
That was, once I went the accounting route, that became part of the plan. So Trinity and a handful, lots of other schools, I'm sure, kind of offer that 5th year, that master's program within the program. So once I part of the decision to make that pivot was a pretty specific career ladder, lots of opportunities with the Big Four accounting firms. I'll come in and do on-campus interviews and all that good stuff. Get a lot of opportunities right out of school. So, coming into college, I didn't know that I would necessarily be looking at graduate school, but once I chose accounting, it made sense.
Did you end up working for one of those Big Four right out of school?
I did. Yeah, I worked for PwC out of school.
What was that experience like? Did you learn a lot? Was it enjoyable? Would you have preferred a smaller firm starting out, or?
It's a terrific place to start your career. I neither loved it nor hated it. I think at least among accountants, it's well known that public accounting has high turnover. It's a lot of long hours, and that was the case for me. But I had a great team, really liked the people that I worked with, and so I wasn't burned out at the time that I left. I just had the opportunity to move to Austin, come to work for Joel, who's now my co-founder, but I've been working for him since 2014, and it seemed like an opportunity that you don't pass on. So, but yeah, PwC was a great place. I learned a ton. I probably worked a couple of years in the year that I worked, but it was overall a very positive experience. And for many years after, when folks looked at my resume, they still would see me as like, oh, you're former Big Four, and so I think that's something that that you take with you. So it's a good place to start.
And when you transitioned over to Austin, were you looking for something like that, or was it something that just kind of fell on your lap?
Yeah, so I was with PwC when I first met Joel, which was April of 2014, and again, I wasn't looking to move to Austin. I wasn't looking to change jobs necessarily, but it was an introduction to a guy who's had a very storied entrepreneurial career in Austin. That seemed like it made sense. And then once I got connected with him and learned what he was needing, it was something that I was like, you know what, if this doesn't work, I can probably go back. But it just felt like something I had to explore.
Was it more like a startup environment, or what were kind of the major differences between that and a bigger firm?
Yeah. Yes, definitely. Not pure startup. So Joel had at the time 2 lower middle market software companies that he was the lead investor and board chairman of, and he had been outsourcing the accounting function to India. So is it cost effective? But you have the time zone issues, you have business context issues. It's hard to just chat about a problem, and so he hired me, or was looking for someone that wound up being me, to build, continue that shared resource model, but do it kind of with the look and feel of employees. So we had a small team of 4 or 5 who were in office with them who supported those 2 businesses, and yeah, so definitely a lot more unknown than Big Four. Like I said, there's a very prescriptive career ladder there. Whereas here, you wear every hat because it's a 60-person company and you're split among the 2, right? So yeah, very, very different. And again, even that felt, to my risk-averse nature, felt different and a little scary. But there was, there's established processes. These are established businesses. It's not a true startup at that point in time.
And what were some of the services you guys were offering over there? Was it mainly, tax preparation, bookkeeping? Was it more of the stuff you do now with the fractional CFO, or?
Yeah, sort of in between, I guess. So, the concept both then and today is that, anything that you might expect an internal accounting team to do, we would do. We were just doing it for more than one business. So, send invoices to customers, harass them if they're late paying them, code vendor bills, close the books every month, generate financial reports that hopefully actually, tell the CFO and the CEO something about what's happening in the business. Mm-hmm. So that was the focus then, and again is kind of the core offering still today. Although, to your point in the intro, we've expanded a bit since then.
And how long were you with him? Was that the job that you came from before you went on and eventually started your own?
Yeah. So he's my co-founder. So we're still working together. But yeah, so I joined in 2014. Had those 2 businesses I referenced. We sold one of them in 2018 to a publicly traded company, And the CEO and CFO from that company, it's called Packet Design, moved into the same roles, CEO and CFO, in 2 other companies in Austin, and brought my team into those 2 companies. And so, kind of by accident, we weren't like trying to build a business, but kind of by accident, we gained a net new client via that acquisition. And then we sold the second of the original 2 in 2021. And so that was sort of the impetus to go, what's next? Maybe the answer is, our team is pretty good at this. Maybe we should be doing it for people other than Joel and his network. And so that was the decision in late 21 to kind of take it to market, and kind of was the catalyst for where we are now.
How hard was that transition? I mean, going from a W-2 paycheck stable to, taking on the risk and starting something of your own. That was just a couple of years ago. So were you married at the time? Did you have a family? A lot of responsibilities with that.
Yeah. So Yes was married. So I've been married to my wife since June of 2013. Can't get that wrong. So I'd been married for a long time. We had one daughter at the time. We have 2 now. But yeah, it was at that point it was scary still, but it had been somewhat de-risked by, I'm very familiar with how we do it, right? We already had processes, we already had people, we already had a couple of customers. And so then it was, how do we, or can we scale it? But we did have kind of a head start on, we weren't starting from scratch.
Right.
So
what were some of those obstacles, early on, and the biggest challenges you felt that you guys faced?
Yeah, I mean, I feel very, fortunate to say that it's all gone very well so far. I mean, of course, there's bumps, there's ups and downs, as in any business. I think that we face the same problems that basically every business faces, big or small, which like fundamentally those come down typically, like you have people problems, you have data problems, you have system or process problems. Like we have all of those, and our clients have all of those. So yeah, but I mean, I think fundamentally probably the number one thing is, you got to have the right people. And again, in any business, that's not unique to 512 Financial. And so I think for the most part, we've done a really, we've grown from 4 people to 35 people in about 2.5 years. And for the most part, those hires have gone very well. You're never going to bat 1,000. And you just got to learn, obviously, from the ones that you miss on. So.
And we touched a little bit on the, fractional CFO services. I know you guys have more within 512 Financial. So what are some of those other, kind of unique offerings you guys have to your clients?
Yeah. So we started kind of just doing that core offering that I mentioned, financial reporting, financial modeling, closing the books, all that good stuff. And then pretty quickly, like probably within about 6 months of starting the business, I got sick of answering no to the question, like, can you help us with our HR? So, there's a kind of a blurry line, where accounting or finance start and HR stop sometimes, like payroll, commissions, bonuses, like obviously those kind of blur that line, benefits to an extent. And so I was like, well, man, like people keep asking me, like, I like revenue. I'd rather say yes. So we started that, made a couple hires in like the May, June of 2022 timeframe, and have slowly scaled that along with the rest of the business. And then in May of 2023, we added fractional CMO services. And that one actually was a little bit harder for me to rationalize, just because again, I feel like there's a lot of similarities and at least kind of a similar focus between HR and finance. And I don't, they're not especially creative, for example, whereas marketing is. And so I wouldn't consider myself a creative person. I don't feel like I understand marketing very well. And so it was a former client who was a seasoned CMO, and I really, really had loved working with her, who came to me and said, Bart, I think I can do what you guys do on the marketing side. And it's like, Vina, I'm sure you're right, but no, thank you. I really like that I understand exactly what we offer our clients and how to do it, and that I would lose that, with the marketing side. But eventually, her and Joel, my co-founder, kind of wore me down in the sense of, how nice would it be for these early to mid-stage businesses that we work with to have, all of these things that they, just like you, Bart, you don't understand marketing. Like some of our client CEOs don't really understand marketing, and they're already using us for accounting and HR. Like, wouldn't it be nice to have that all under the same roof? And so we launched that in May of 23, and then have kind of along the way, kind of productized like smaller, sub services under each of those three main lines.
And because you mentioned small to mid-sized businesses, and I think, that's kind of what your guys' service is made of, right? At what point do you think a company should start looking at, a fractional CFO service like you guys? They might not be at the point where they can hire a full-time CFO. So obviously there's a lot of benefits to working with someone like you guys. Yeah.
I mean, that's exactly the value prop, right? Is you get the expertise and experience of someone who's done this for a long time, without, paying the price tag. So, we, typical size that we work with is anywhere from, 20 to 250 people. And usually that means 2 to 20-ish million, 2 to 25 million on the revenue side. We'll work with bigger or smaller, but, to your point, once you reach a certain kind of plateau, it starts to make sense to bring that fully in-house. So.
Yeah, and there's enormous benefits to that, right? Because it's not just the bookkeeping and keeping all of their financials in order, but there's also a strategic component to it. You can't really plan for what you don't measure. So, what kind of benefits would you touch on from that standpoint?
Yeah, I mean, so I guess I'll start on kind of the bookkeeping side. And I generally, I'm kind of allergic to that word typically, just because I think it's associated with kind of low touch and low cost. And there are businesses that's all they need, right? But what we try to do, we just call them accountants instead of bookkeepers. And typically they're spending a more material amount of time on our clients, right? 10 hours a week, 15 hours a week. And the reason for that isn't just because like that's how long it takes to key in transactions. It's that we want to understand our clients' relationships with their customers and with their vendors and with their people and the seasonality, so that, if September was a bad month, like we don't freak out necessarily because we know, Septembers are slow. Like if you look at the trend, September of 23 and September of 22 were slow. And so that's okay. Or the opposite, right? But, I think the common bookkeeper, right, like does their job, which is, tie out the bank statement, make sure that the books are closed, but the contextual pieces around the business that we think are very, very important can kind of get missed. And so that's a big piece of what we do. Really, I mean, the whole cycle. Same thing on the fractional CFO side. We know folks in the space, and they're really smart, and they are great in Excel, and they know their way around a financial model. But their model in some cases is, I'm going to spend 5 hours a month on my many clients, and they can add value doing that. That's not to say that they can't. But again, our model and what we're trying to do is like we want to look and feel like members of our clients' teams, and to the point where I mentioned back in 2018 when we sold that first company, some of the folks at that company were like, what are you going to do next? And we were like, what do you mean? Like, and they're like, well, that Sienna has accountants, they're not going to need you. And we're like, we don't work here. And like genuinely, people we had worked with for 3 or 4 years like did not know that we weren't employees of Packet Design. And so that's not always going to be the case, but that's really like the intent of the model, is that we want it to feel like an employee but without the cost.
So dive a little bit more into that. How does your guys' business model exactly work with scaling it up and having a lot of clients going on, and having 30, I think you mentioned 30 something people at your company, right?
Yep.
How many clients does each employee get assigned a certain amount of clients, or how do you guys manage that?
Yeah. So this is another thing that I think is different from there are a lot of companies that do what we do more or less, or a version of it. But so all of our folks are W-2 salaried employees. And I point that out because there's a cost benefit to that, right? Like, it's on me to make those people busy. Mm-hmm. But if they're not, they are still compensated the same, right? Which is attractive, and it's, for the employees, it's very attractive versus a lot of the companies out here. Like, you can make more on an hourly basis, but you're only getting paid when you're, utilized, right. and you don't necessarily control that. So that's kind of the model from the employment side. And then on the client side, typically our people have somewhere between 2 and 4 clients at any given time that they're spending somewhere between 10 and 20 hours a week on. So again, like, to get that sort of look and feel, and to be able to learn the business, and that's not just numbers. It's really, it's important to know those details. And I don't care how smart you are, like, you can't do that in a couple hours a month or even a couple hours a week. So we charge fixed monthly fees based on an agreed upon allocation. Again, that 10 hours a week or 20 hours a week or whatever it might be, which we arrive at via, how many customers do you invoice a month? How many vendors do you pay a month? How fast do you need your financial reporting done? Who's it going to? Investors, lenders, just the CEO? All those things. What systems are you in? Do you like them? Do you hate them? Should we change them? And so based on all of that stuff, we agree on, what seniority of resource they need and how much time they need.
Right. And I would imagine that it's pretty hard to maintain quality, as you're scaling. Have you had any issues or challenges with that?
I would be cocky and probably lying if I said every single client situation went perfectly, right? But again, I think, our hiring process is pretty robust and time consuming. We have initial screening and some assessments that folks do, and then they go through a core values interview, which is, assessing culture and fit from a company and client perspective. They go through obviously a technical, their technical accounting or HR or marketing skills. And then I always, I'm always either the closer or the whatever you want to call it. But I want to make sure that I understand everyone, like, who they are, right? Everyone who's coming into the business. And so, yeah, it's a time consuming thing. And again, we still get it wrong sometimes, but that is one kind of way to do the quality control piece. And then obviously a lot of training when folks first get onboarded. They don't typically have a client for the first month or so. And that time is just spent, like, making sure that they're familiar with the financial reporting templates that we use, with the systems that we use. And so again, it's not foolproof, but that's how we try to maintain quality control as we scale.
And, businesses obviously vary from industry to industry. So is there a specific industry you guys focus on, or are you guys kind of just, if it makes sense, it makes sense?
Yeah, I would call us industry agnostic, but we do have a concentration in the software, the SaaS space. And that just comes from, again, Joel being an entrepreneur of 30-ish years, that's where he has lived in Austin. And so everyone in that space knows him. And along with that, sort of the Austin venture capital and private equity community. And that's where obviously all of my time in Austin has been in that space. Excuse me. So yeah, usually when the phone rings saying, like, hey, I think we need help, it's often a VC or private equity backed software company. But we work with clients in just about every industry. We've got manufacturing and construction and nonprofit. And I think the most random one was a 3D food printing business. But fundamentally, at least, on both the accounting and the HR side, I think on the marketing side, there's more variability and, again, the creativity that comes into play. But if you understand the fundamentals of accounting and how to look at financial statements, whether it's a restaurant or a software company, like, you kind of understand the process either way.
Right. And, us as a lender, we look at a lot of that. So obviously, big benefit when it comes to getting loans. Lenders are going to want to look at your books. They're going to want to look at your financials. And if it's all clean and packaged up nicely, it makes the process a lot easier. So with that being said, when a lot of clients come over, are they typically Are their books in shambles? Are they coming over from, maybe using just like a bookkeeper, as you said, that's kind of just putting stuff together, but not really taking the time and effort that it might require?
Yes. That is often most of the time, I would say, that we are pulled in is because, whether maybe it's not on fire, although sometimes it's on fire, but, maybe it's just been something that, the owner or the CFO or something has known, like, eventually we got to fix this. And usually when they decide the time is now to fix it, that's when we get pulled in. So yeah, it's not necessarily in shambles, but sometimes it's hey, now that we're taking on investors, we've got to go from cash accounting to GAAP accounting.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a mess, but it's a fundamentally different style and approach. Or hey, we've been on QuickBooks Desktop for a long time. We know we need to get into the cloud. Like, you got to help us do that, right? So yeah, we encounter a lot of those and welcome that challenge and usually can bring a lot of value that way.
And where are you guys, being 512 Financial, you guys mainly operating out of Austin, or are you guys nationwide?
We have clients everywhere. There's certainly a concentration in Austin and in Central Texas. And then, another subset where their investors are here, but the business might be anywhere across the United States. So we do have clients coast to coast. But certainly there's a concentration here, and there's something nice about that just from like a time zone perspective, that its calendars align and all that good stuff.
Do you ever have, clients or people wanting to meet in person? Is a lot of it done virtually?
Vast majority is done virtually. We do have clients in Austin who maybe our folks go into their office a day or two a week. And then others where maybe they just meet them quarterly for a board meeting or something like that. But yeah, I would say, day to day, vast majority of the work is through Zoom or Teams or, video conferencing of choice.
Mm-hmm. And what would you, what's kind of, because you guys have had this, rapid growth and success, obviously. What's the key differentiator there? I know, you came in with a book of business, and having your partner and mentor, of course, helps as well. But is there something, you touched on it a little bit earlier, but is there something that, significantly stands you guys out? Is it maybe doing a better job at marketing and just getting clients? Or is it truly, you think, a more quality thing that you guys are just better at your job?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a quality and a reputation thing. Again, I think in the Austin venture capital space in particular, it started with people knew Joel, and then over the last 3 years, I think more and more are knowing me or us as a brand. And I think that there's a level of confidence, that, it may not be the cheapest. Again, right? You could go hire a bookkeeper for $500 a month. We can't do that. And if that's your budget, that's your budget. Totally respect it. But we are going to be a lot. If you're evaluating, or if their portfolio companies are evaluating, hey, we think we need, a kind of more strategic finance brain, like that's a big financial commitment. And so, and so oftentimes when we're getting, again, those sort of inbound things, it's coming from those investors who know that we'll handle that stuff professionally. So yeah, I mean, it's really been a word of mouth thing so far. We have done marketing, but I'm pretty cheap, and so we certainly, and we don't have any investment ourselves, right? Like, this is a fully bootstrapped business. So most of this has been sort of like guerrilla warfare tactics from a marketing perspective, and then just the reputation and quality.
Yeah, that was actually going to be my next question is, what in terms of marketing spend, where are you guys at, or are you even, putting dollars towards that, or is it really just focus on the organic growth and let your product speak for itself?
Yeah, I mean, it is not exclusively that, but it's heavy leaning there. So I mentioned we've got a fractional CMO practice and team. We have a team of 5, and so those folks are primarily client facing, but we get their brain share, right? Mm-hmm. So we do get the benefit of having them and having obviously their cost effectively covered via doing client work. But when I throw something against a wall and see if it sticks, I've got people who actually understand marketing say, no, Bart, that's dumb. Like, we shouldn't do that. And then we have done, we've done a couple of events here and there. We co-hosted, I should say, an event up in North Austin at Slacker's Brewery and catered in Interstellar Barbecue, just as sort of like a client and partner appreciation type thing. And so we've done a few of those, but I would say our marketing budget is pretty slim, and most of it is driven by word of mouth and by we do have a handful of partnerships specifically within technology. So some of the HR, some of the like payroll providers that we have leveraged at our clients, the accounting system, some of those AR and AP tools, we represent them on our website and very well understand the benefits of those. And as a result, then when folks go to a ramp and say like, hey, yeah, like we know we need help. We know we need to improve our credit card spend program, and we could really use an accountant to do it. Then, it goes both ways.
And how would you say, based on your guys' model, you said, depending on how much work you guys are putting in on the clients, on a weekly basis, but it's essentially kind of like a subscription model, right? On a monthly basis, how much is coming in terms of the clients you already have. And does that make, scaling it and predictability a little bit easier? Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, it's, so the model is that it's effectively, again, back to the concept or the comment about looking and feeling like employees, right? Like there's no long-term contract, right? If you hire someone, you're not committed to them for a year or 2 years or whatever, but generally there's an expectation that that's a relationship that's going to be there for a while. Mm-hmm. And it's the same way with us. So yeah, you sign up for $5,000 a month or whatever the number is based on the resourcing. And that's, that's what you're going to pay. And that's what you're going to pay indefinitely until you tell us either A, you need more, or hey, you know what, like, I think it's time for us to hire, or if there's some, the business need changes. But so there's, it's not it's an ongoing contract, but when people need to scale up or scale down or the business has changed, then it's not hard to end that.
And are you guys always available, if your clients need you for something that comes up? Or is it, when you're talking about putting in 10, 15 hours, depending on the client, is that more of a scheduled thing, or is that just kind of, what depending on the workload?
Yeah, it's definitely depending on the workload. I think some people within the firm approach it a little bit differently, so if you are, just going to use this as easy math, if you're 16 hours a week, so it's 2 days, some people might go, hey, client, you've got me unfettered access Mondays and Thursdays. That's not most of the situation, but that might be how some people chunk it. And if it's preferable, or if it works with that client schedule, more commonly it's like, hey, you send me a Slack or a Teams message or whatever when you need me, and I'll get back to you as fast as possible. Mm-hmm. And there are individual weeks that if I'm 10 hours on a client, when I'm closing the books or when I'm updating the financial model on a quarterly basis or doing board slides on a quarterly basis, I'm probably going to go above 10 hours sometimes, and I'm not going to bill them because I went above. I just know that right now I'm busier, and probably in a subsequent week or month, it might be a little slower. Right. Again, same concept as with an employee. Like every once in a while you might work more than 40 hours, and then some other weeks you might work 35. Right. So that's generally the approach kind of across the lines, is like, if you got to do a few extra hours here and there, so be it. There will be other times it's a little bit slower, and that's okay.
And now that you're in a position of, managing employees, and, it's a little bit different than working as an employee, right? So how hard would you say it is when, as an employee, you may have a little bit of room to slack off, or whatever it is, but, when you're an owner, you really have people that depend on you, and you're only going to get paid based on the effort that you put in.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a different model and responsibility, and I think one of the biggest learnings for me as we've gone is I've always been just absolute grind, do what it takes type of person. And that's both to make sure that things get done right and because I wanted to advance and all those things. And so I think for a while as an individual contributor and early on in being a manager or starting the business, I just had an assumption that that's how everyone is because that's how I am, right? So that's just how it works.
Right.
And so it's been a learning that's, everyone's at a different point in life. Everyone's got different motivations. And I think, back in, 2016 or 17, I remember I had a rock star A player staff accountant who I was like, how do we get you to senior accountant? Like that you're so good at this. And she was just like, no, I'm good. And like, it blew my mind, cause I was like, what do you mean? What do you mean you're good? We're talking about how to make more and do more and, have more responsibility. Like that's what everybody wants.
Right.
And so that was kind of the first of many learnings in that, you gotta, as a manager and as a, leader, I guess, that you do have to kind of tune, or be attuned to that, my motivations are not everyone's motivations and trying to kind of fit that to people as long as it works for the business, right? Like to your point, if the way that Jane Doe works is she doesn't want to, she likes to work 10 hours a week and sleep until noon. Like obviously we're not going to accommodate that, but yeah, there's just there's different schedules, there's different styles, there's different goals that you've got to be aware of.
Yeah, and definitely different motivations for different employees. Some may be more money driven, some may want more quality time, holidays,
right.
Paid time off, stuff like that, benefits. But speaking a little bit more on your management style, going from 4 employees to 30 plus, there must have had to been a lot of systems that were implemented and, sort of checks and balances in order to do that.
Yeah. So, I think this was a benefit of having Joel as a co-founder and mentor. I think he thought of the need or recognized the need to have sort of management layers before I would have thought it was important. And also to have someone kind of responsible for the heartbeat, let's call it, of the organization. So, out of the gate, every single person in the company was a billable resource, right? They did accounting or finance work for our clients or HR work. About 8 months in, we hired an internal, our director of operations, to sort of make all those people who all they do is focus on clients, make their lives easier. And that was a little over 2 years ago now. And, what a absolute incredible and necessary hire. Like we would not be where we are without her. So that was one very, very important thing. And then again, everyone reported to me for a while. And, obviously as you get bigger, that needs to change for both the people under you and for the me. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think thanks to Joel, I think earlier than I would have recognized, we started to build out, okay, like the accounting consultants start to report to the senior consultants who report to the account directors who report to me, and so that happened around maybe 12 to 15 employees and made scaling substantially more, substantially smoother.
Yeah. So kind of, levels of management there. A lot of businesses, when they first start out, they have to reinvest a lot of the profits in order to grow the business. How many clients did you guys bring over when you first started? And was it profitable, kind of from day one, or did it take a little bit of that?
Yeah. So we brought over 4 clients. It was, so the one that we had sold in 2021 was and still is a client. So that was one. And then the 2 that I referenced that had we had kind of gotten by accident after the 2018 acquisition were still with us. And then we had picked up one more along the way. So we had 4 people and 4 clients on day one. And then I went to the board of one of those clients that I had been on for a while and said, hey, a couple times you had asked me, are you guys open for business? And I said, no. Well, the answer is yes now. Like, you have any portfolio companies that could use us? And the answer was yes. And so within probably a month or two, we went from 4 clients to 7, and hired obviously to support that. And so yeah, again, we had a head start to be sure, and we were profitable out of the gate. Joel and I each put $2,000 in the business just for the sake of having some money in the account, but that's the extent of the equity in the business.
Wow. Well, when it comes to employees, how are you guys, recruiting a lot of your talent? How are you scouting for it, and what's been successful for you in finding good labor?
Yeah, so couple of kind of avenues, I would say. One is I've hit my alma mater very hard. So Trinity University in San Antonio, obviously it's close by, right down I-35, and I just had a wonderful experience with a lot of really smart people there, and so we have hired. I think of our 35, I think 8 or 9 are from Trinity, which is a very small school. It'd be, it would be like woohoo if it was UT, right? But we're talking a school of 2,500 students. So we've hit that hard. Some people I knew and a few who I didn't know before hiring them. We're really, really big on employee referrals. So we'll pay our people $2,500 if they refer someone in, which is not an insignificant amount of money. But if you think about using a recruiter who might, you'll pay 20% of a salary, like it's peanuts relative to that. Mm-hmm. And you get the fact that, you've got someone in the business willing to vouch for them. So that's avenue 2. And then really only a couple people have we hired who, who someone in the business didn't know. But for that, Paylocity is our HRIS, payroll, talent acquisition, benefits, expense, all that stuff. And through that, for a couple extra bucks a month, you get the ability to, anytime that you post or we post a job on our website, it immediately puts it to LinkedIn, Indeed, and I think one other. And then, again, having the HR services team that we have, a lot of their background is in talent acquisition and hiring. And so we've been able to really kind of streamline that process to go from a huge bucket of candidates to the ones that we really, we really want to talk to, and to the hopefully right people. And so those 3 kind of avenues are how we've brought everyone on, really.
Great. What are you guys doing currently to, kind of get to that next level? What are some foreseeable, goals you guys have in mind in the near future, and where do you expect to take this thing?
Yeah, I mean, this is a maybe annoying cliche answer. There is not a specific, I'm not we got to get to 20 million in revenue, or we got to get to 100 people, or I don't have any of those specific goals. I want, as long as we are, as long as it's a positive place for people to work, and we are delivering great work to our clients, and I want to keep doing that, and so I think that will allow us to keep growing at a pretty nice clip, but there's not a specific end game in mind. But as far as some of the things, I mentioned sub-services within those lines. So one that we launched pretty recently is financial due diligence, quality of earnings, it's often called. And so we formally launched that probably in late 23, and have seen that picking up quite a bit of steam. So I think we've probably done 10 QVs this year-ish, 10-ish. And interesting are sort of then entering a new kind of sub-segment within that, which is a term I literally just learned, ETA, entrepreneurship through acquisition. And so those are typically going to be a little bit smaller deals, right? Maybe individual buyers or maybe a small syndicate, but it's not like your typical private equity investor.
Right.
But you still need diligence. You still have to understand, are the numbers what they tell me they are, and are the people doing what they should be, or what holes do I have, or those types of things. And so we're kind of building a product right now that caters specifically to that ETA space as an additional avenue within QV. So I mean, there's so many places that it can go when once you have the skill set, right? It's just very minor tweaks to to either productize or go after, one of those subsegments. So we're really excited about that opportunity.
Yeah. And on our side, whenever some of our clients, borrowers are purchasing businesses, we always try to recommend that they get one of those earnings reports done, because absolutely want to verify that everything is legitimate and know what they're getting themselves into. And a lot of the times, we're doing the SBA, the 5 million and under space, which is, kind of what you're talking about, and it very crucial. Are you guys doing a lot in the exit planning space? Do you also help your clients, prepare for an exit, or is it more so on more of the buyer side? Yeah,
I would say it's more on the buyer side. I think maybe one of those 10 I referenced was a sell side QV. I would say that we assist in exit prep in the sense of a lot of our clients, their end goal is some sort of acquisition. And we know what investors are looking for generally. And that's part of, it's not that it's trying to put lipstick on a pig. It's just, let's get your chart of accounts in order. Let's be reporting on some of the metrics that we know they're going to ask for whenever you reach that point. So it's sort of like perpetual exit planning, but it's not that, we don't have clients come to us and say, hey, I want to sell, help me sell. Right. That's not really us, but we're involved in that space overall.
Yeah, and it's an extremely important thing too. If you're getting ready to sell a business, you definitely want to make sure your books are in order and your financials are. What advice would you have to someone being as you've done it yourself? Leaving a W-2 role and wanting to go out, leaving the comfort of that paycheck, wanting to take the risk and go out and venture into something of their own.
I think buckle up is to really simplify it. I mean, it's I have really truly loved it, but it's not easy, and that's even coming from a place where it has relatively gone smoothly. We haven't had to do a layoff. We haven't had a cash crunch. We haven't, some of the things that I think are pretty common within startups. We've been fortunate not to experience, but I still wake up at 2 or 3 in the morning sometimes and go like, holy crap, I've got 35 people and their families who are like kind of relying on me making sure that I don't screw this thing up, Mm-hmm. So it's super fulfilling, like super, super fulfilling. I'm having more fun than I ever had, preparing financials and board decks and although those are meaningful things to do. I'm having a blast, building all the relationships and hiring and finding partners and all that stuff. But yeah, it's just, you just have to understand that it is stressful. That's like, it is what it is. But worth it in my opinion.
Yeah. And as dry as it sounds, you're helping a lot of business owners change their lives and really change the trajectory of their business, where they can provide for their families and do what they have to do. And then I want to wrap up on this, but kind of give us the 1 minute, the quick sales pitch on 512 Financial.
Yeah. I should probably have this down by now. But yeah, I mean, ultimately it's, if you have a growing or scaling business, and you are trying to kind of figure out what's a lever to get to the next place, wherever that is for you, we're someone to call, right? And we're extremely, and we as a company are extremely straightforward. If someone comes to us and explains where they are and what the problem is and their size, and we might tell them either, Rusty Hale's company would be better for you. They do a little bit more. They're more focused on month-end close. They know how to do this as well or better, and you can get it for a little bit cheaper, right? We'll tell them that. Or we might say, as much as I would love your business, you should hire a CFO. We've told people that. So I think the sales pitch for us is, that we're a sophisticated fractional services firm. that will always be upfront with you and kind of go the extra mile to make sure that we do what we can to make sure you're successful.
Awesome, man. Well, Bart, thank you so much for coming on. I definitely think, what you guys do is important and very crucial for businesses that are wanting to grow specifically. And, it's been a pleasure working with you and getting to know you. And yeah, I mean, thanks a lot for being here, and I appreciate your time. Everybody, we'll see you guys on the next one. Thanks for so much for tuning in, and have a great day.